And hello and welcome once again. This is 3X with another call making tutorial, follow up for the body morphing tutorial that I made on SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. Those techniques obviously still apply to WWE12 since it's pretty much the same call model either way. But just as promised before, this one's going to focus on facial morphing. So we're going to go into call mode here. This is all being recorded in real time, so prepare for another long video, maybe 20-30 minutes or so. Pretty much stick around if you want to learn a couple of new things. If you don't know anything about call making, or even if you do and just want to pick up a few more tricks along the way, because that's what it's all about, learning from other people. It's pretty much how I've gotten to where it is that I've gotten. A lot of skills I learned from other people, as well as picking up my own tricks. But enough about that. Let me go first into a little bit of a trick or insider thing that maybe not too many people are aware of regarding the facial templates. Now, a lot of people will probably think to themselves, oh, well, I can pretty much just use face number 1 because that's default. Everything's at 0, and I can pretty much make whatever I want from there. You are wrong if you think this. Each facial template has its own specific values that even if you set them to 0, they'll look different from face number 1. So if you're using face number 8 and you set everything to 0, it's going to look different than the face you see here, which is set to everything 0. Same thing applies for body morphing. If you choose a different body type, like a fatter body type, I'll get into that probably in another body morphing video, because I was planning on doing another one for specific builds. But anyway, aside from that little bit of knowledge that's now hopefully being embedded into your brains, facial morphing is one of those things that's hit or miss, specifically for original CAWS, because some people think that it might not be as necessary to do as, say, if you were doing a realistic CAW, celebrity or an actual wrestler, where you have to be as accurate as possible. What I do many times is base faces off of actual people, celebrities, models, wrestlers, that type of thing, though I won't go for 100% accuracy. Sometimes I do, depending on the specific cause, but other times it's just more of a similarity type thing. I find when you do that, you wind up having much more realistic looking facial morphs than if you were to, say, just arbitrarily change up a couple of sliders here and there. So that being said, one thing you want to start getting into the habit of doing when you're making faces, particularly for, like, say, a new CAW, is to decide on how you want them to look. And I don't mean just like, I want to make a black woman CAW, or I want to make an Asian male CAW. You have to really get into thinking about how you want their specific facial details to look, because each ethnicity, has their own specific facial features, and that basically correlates into which template you're going to be using. If you want to make someone who is Latin, face number 7 is probably a good way to start. If you want someone who is Asian, Japanese, Chinese, Pacific Islander, Filipino, whatever, face number 8, obviously, best base, generally. If you want to make somebody who's black, or well, face 5 would be a good one for a black lady, but you can also use face number 1 and alter the default values and get a pretty good quality African descent individual, in addition to obviously a Caucasian person, white person. We're going to go with face 1 here because that will give us the most detail for what it is that I'm about to do. You can mess around with the eyes and the hair if you want that, but what I do primarily is I start with the face shape and then build around that. So before I begin that, bases, pretty much. Who you want the CAWS face or body or overall appearance to be based off of. Now again, that doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but if you give yourself a base, then that can give you a better idea of what it is that you're trying to go for, as far as their attire or their wrestling style, or basically a lot of different aspects of how you want the car to come out as far as the final product. Now again, the sources are infinite that you can use. Any number of pictures you can Google, you can Wikipedia, just anywhere, pretty much. It doesn't have to necessarily be somebody who is well known. It can be a model, which is a frequent source of my car creation bases and inspirations and such like that. For this particular lady, which is going to be an all-new car from scratch, right here you're starting to see the first of it. The base photograph I'm going to be using, or base person I should say, is a model who goes by the name of Claudia Sampedro. She's one of those hip-hop video women. I'll have a picture of the exact image linked up onto the description page, so you can see exactly where it is that I'm working from, and use that hopefully to follow along with what it is that you see me doing here to get as close or as accurate a face morph as possible. And you'll see from the photo that this is one bad chick. Oh yes. So after 8 or so minutes of talking, we're actually going to get into some morphing here. And what I will usually do is start with the eyebrows. Don't need to mess so much with the head and the cranium and stuff like that unless you want to get specific looks. But for this specific car, I'll start with the eyebrows. And what you need to know about that is that the x-axis is probably going to be the most important aspect of the car as far as their eyebrows go, because if you alter it up or down, obviously it's going to bring the eyebrows up more or down more. Thank you, Captain Obvious. And then the angle, pretty much self-explanatory. How you want their eyebrows to angle, depending on which eyebrows you set, this can make for them to look more emotional, I should say, like an angrier look, a scowl, maybe a more laid back kind of appearance, or just generally trying to match up the angle of the individual's eyebrows to the base photograph that you're working from, pretty much, which is what I'm doing. So I'm gonna bring those back down to maybe like a -10 and go into the eyes. Now it's really a matter of matching things up. I don't want to say trial and error, but you will wind up going back into other categories to touch up after you've done your initial morphing to try to get things again as close as possible. Now in the case of the eyes, it's one of those trickier things to try to get, because there are certain eye shapes that unfortunately you can't really recreate with this core model. I don't want to make it a personal dig on the call mode here of SmackDown. I mean WWE 12. I'm so used to saying SmackDown versus Raw, but the call model here is dated, and the morphing system of call mode in this particular game is dated as well. When you compare it to even another THQ game, Saints Row the Third, which just came out last month, their creation tools as far as morphing are super detailed, to the point where you can like almost 100% accurately create real people. I mean, I saw a spot on Eddie Murphy player model that looked exactly like him, and it takes a little more work to do that here, uh, because of the sliders being so arbitrary, really, and you know, basic. Like, you can control certain aspects of the face, but there are other aspects that you really can't, and other ones that you really don't have an idea of what does what. I'll try to explain that as best as possible as I go along here. Starting with the size of the eyes, obviously. You drop that down and makes your eyes a little smaller. You can combine that with the height and width of the eyes to create different looks. So if you drop the size down all the way, but you increase the height and the width, you can make mid-size looking eyeballs, like more circular or more squarish. Not squarish, but wider, basically, but still not being wide to the point where it's like all the way that, which is like almost cartoonish. Let's bring that back down to 11. X-axis, again, I mean, you probably pretty much know this already, but that affects how close to the center of the face the eyes are going to be. It's safe for me to keep that there at 0, as well as the depth. Maybe you want to bring that out a little bit to push the eyes outward a little bit more. Let's make that 70 to be on the safe side there. Next, the nose, and without question, the nose is probably the single trickiest thing to recreate or alter on any call model in the history of this game, since they changed the call models up between the PlayStation 2 Xbox generation to the PS3 Xbox 360 generation of consoles, because there's just some aspects of the nose that you cannot touch on this model, no matter how much you try to alter the sliders. And it pretty much makes or breaks how well a car looks compared to the real life counterpart, because some people have very prominent looking noses and others have real basic looking ones. Like, say if you were making a Triple H car, his nose pretty easy to recreate because it's so dang big. But for this particular lady, hers is a little more detailed. So we'll start with the height and the width of the nostrils. Generally on a woman, I mean, depending on ethnicity, obviously, the width and height are going to be slightly smaller naturally than a man's nose, because a woman's face is configured differently. In her case, we can drop those down to between -20s to -30s or so, just to try to match the overall shape of the nose. Details of the nose obviously cannot be recreated as accurately because of the skin tone issues and the fact that they give you a limited selection of them, and some of them actually make the face look completely different for what it is that you were trying to go for. Length, we can bring that down. Angle is also an important one because that will allow you to make more of a button nose type look, or more of a drop down type look, which really makes the nose look completely different. It's still the same size, but the angle makes her nose look a little bigger right now than if you were to angle it upwards, where it would look a little smaller. And you combine that with the length of the nose and get completely different effects, really depending on what it is that you're trying to go for. Since we're trying to go for a specific person, we have to we gotta do it bit by bit. And like I said, we'll be going backwards and forwards here. Miss Sampedro has a particularly oval shaped face, so the features are a little longer, so we can afford to thin things out and drop things down. You see me adjusting the height. That brings the nose a little further down on the face, or you can make it all the way down. What you can generally do is go from extremes and work your way downward from there. Like start at 100, and if that looks too much, you just bring it down a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more, until you get to where it is that you think it looks decent. And 70 looks pretty decent to me. Yes, it does. And again, the height and the width of the nostrils are the make and the break right there, because if you get that to a certain point, then you don't actually need to mess around with the width or the size of the nose unless absolutely necessary to recreate as accurate a facial feature as you possibly can. Just to show you how that would go into extremes, there's 100 and there's negative 100. Creates two completely different looks all together. We're going to bring that back down to 0 here. And for now, we're going to leave that nose alone and go back to it if we need it. Cheeks now. Probably one of the most untouched features on original CAWS is the cheeks, because you really don't see what kind of effects they're making. Even if you like go sideways and try to see it at every angle, it's hard to notice what it is that you're adjusting when you change up the X and Y axes, but they are changing something. You can see here from both of them being negative 100 that the cheekbones kind of like edge out a little bit, kind of creating a more chiseled look that you don't want to do on a female, because female faces are more round than a man's face. So generally you want to go upwards, but not too far up, because then you make the face look chubby. Like I said, Miss Sampedro's face is more elongated, so we generally don't want to do anything here unless absolutely necessary. Maybe I might see something if I'm doing the chin to kind of match up or such, but I just wanted to show you a little bit about the cheeks and what you can do with them, how you can handle them. There you see full-size cheeks, makes the face look a whole lot fatter. And then the opposite effect when you bring it all the way down, say if you want to make someone who look more slimmer or skinny, bony, emaciated, however you want to put it, anorexic. Now we get to the mouth. Lips. Simply stated here, depending on the ethnicity of the person, you will have to do a couple of things or really nothing at all. generally, rule of thumb as far as noses and mouths, if you're creating a black person, they're going to have wider and thicker of both. It's just natural, it's genetics, it's what have you. You're not necessarily going to see thicker noses on, say, a white person. Maybe on an Asian person sometimes, maybe Pacific Islander or Filipino or such like that. But that's as far as noses go. As far as mouths go, really goes down into the personal preference or how the person looks. Now, going back into Miss Sampedro, she has particularly thicker lips, kind of normal sized. So again, we go to the extremes of 100%, which makes them really, really thick, and we'll drop them down gradually till we get to the look or the size that we want. Keeping in mind again that her face is kind of long, we're going to bring the height down a little bit as well. And that's all going to correlate back into whatever I do with the chin to make the face look longer. You can do this again with a combination of heights on the eyes and the nose and the lips and the chin without having to touch the head. All that's going to do is just make the overall head shape longer. It's not going to make the facial features look longer on the face. That you got to do yourself. So that seems like a good length proportion. Then we go into the details of the upper lip and the lower lip. Generally, females have thicker lips than men do, particularly the lower lip, which is highlighted here. This is something you learn when you're doing drawing classes, basically. Obviously, not everybody is as artistically inclined or knows that much about body anatomy as an artist would. So, like I said, that's where we share the wealth. We can bring the upper lip a little bit higher, but generally the lower lip is where her main feature is as far as the lips goes. And now that we have that, we can probably stand to thin the lips just a touch, maybe about -20 or so, because they're not completely wide, but that normal size there seemed a little too wide as well. So that seems to be like a good medium right there. That would be the mouth, and then we go into the jaw. And as I was saying before, how we adjust the jawline will create that final effect overall on the face. Like I said, she has a long face. So again, let's bring that all the way up. And at 100, it seems to be pretty accurate. As far as the length of a chin goes. As far as the width of a chin, however, that seems to be a little more pointed than the genuine article. So we're gonna kind of try to mess around with that a little bit. This is another tricky part here, because again, you don't want to create a face that looks too squarish in terms of a woman, because woman's face is generally more rounded again. But it's just a matter of how you combine the height along with the outline and the upper line, pretty much. That's going to round out the bottom half. Well, not the bottom half, but the edges underneath the cheekbones. Create some more rounded jawline. You can see the proportions are pretty much identical. Outline and upper line at 21. Keep the width at 10. Kind of a neutral area there. And as far as the ears, most of the time I don't really touch the ears unless I see that they're like super big, then I might mess around with them. But generally I leave those alone. So now we have our basic idea is when we can go back in and maybe see if something can be touched up on or changed. And I'll always go back to the nose first just to make sure. With the nose you want to at least try to get as close to the actual shape as possible. The details you're probably not going to be able to get, like getting rid of the lines of the edges of the nose. I don't know what you call it. I know there's some scientific name for it, but whatever. That's where you would incorporate your designs and paint tools and textures and stuff like that to recreate specific facial features. But I don't do that stuff. I don't hack. I don't add facial features. I just work with what the CAW model gives me, and generally that does pretty well for me. Let's go back into the eyes, see if maybe we can change up a little something here. Try to make them a little more rounded. I didn't like that morph. And just remember where you have the settings set before you alter. That way you can go back. I don't know what I'm messing with the width for. It's completely wrong one. Maybe the height a little bit. Yeah, that seems to be working right there. And drop the width down to kind of create a more rounded facial look. Rounded eyes look, I should say. Not necessarily almond eyes or thinner eyes. But overall, if you take a look at the photograph and the face you see here, it's pretty close. And that's generally what I go for, pretty close. Maybe not 100% total accuracy, but that just goes into the limitations of the CAW model itself. It's only but so much you can do. You can maybe thin down the width of the nose overall a little bit, maybe about 25 or so. And yep, I think we got it here. And so from there is where I will go into the detailing of how I want the eyes to look and the eyebrows and so on and so forth. Let me just finish up those touch-ups and do a little talking for you, a little bit more as far as core theories and so on and so forth like that. Generally speaking, what I will do is every time base a CAW model off of an actual person, primarily with newer CAWs that I make for the sake of accuracy, and previous CAWs I stick to the morphings that I had did beforehand. Maybe I might touch up a couple of things here and there to make them look a little more realistic than they did before, but on newer CAWs, most definitely this is the method of creating faces that I will use. and it's really not too difficult a trick to pick up. It's just a matter of trusting your own eyes. You know, you have the picture sitting right next to you on your computer screen, which is what I would recommend, and you would just basically be going back and forth, looking back at the CAW model, looking back at the picture. One thing you definitely want to do as far as the picture goes, make sure you have a completely full frontal facial photograph of the person. Nothing at like a 45-degree angle or 3/4. Maybe if they have their head tilted, you can work with that, but as long as you can see the face from the front as if you were looking straight dead at them, you're good, because that will give you the most accurate proportions as to where the parts of the face lie, and that will help you get things as close as humanly possible to where it is that you want them to be. Going back again into saying that it's I'd say 90% accurate, this method, to recreating an actual face, because of, again, the limitations of the current create wrestler mode in the THQ WWE games. It's, in my opinion, really time for them to change it up, give it more detail as far as facial morphing goes, as far as body morphing goes too, because compared to other games like a Saints Row or an APB or even some of the current sports titles out there, Fight Night Champion, Tiger Woods, PGA, there's a stark difference. There's a whole lot more detail in those game models than there is in the ones we see on the WWE games now. At one point, this was the standard, but now it's dated. Other games have taken cues from this and done more with it. Now it's time, in my opinion, for the WWE games to do more with the create wrestler mode. I understand they're focused more on gameplay and so on and so forth, but call mode is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of generally every other call maker out there, the bread and butter of the WWE games. It's what we buy the game for, and that's a pretty big community. Not just talking about CAWS.WS, but even THQ's own SmackDown vs. Raw site, now WWE12 site, Gaming Ring, and other places out there. There are plenty of others out there where call communities are pretty big. YouTube, other places like TXW on YouTube, the Roundtable guys, it's big, basically, and we push the features as far as they can go, but it's time for the features to get a little more detailed. That's just my personal opinion. I'm pretty sure there's probably quite a few people who would agree with that. But again, just my own thoughts. Let me let you take a final look at the final product. Now this again was starting based on the default face. And there will be a little more or less work that would need to be done, again, depending on whether or not you are going for a certain ethnicity. And that goes back into the templates that you use. I'm probably going to wind up doing another face morphing tutorial somewhere down the stretch going into the specifics of different ethnicities, like if you wanted to make an Asian CAW, or if you wanted to make a black CAW, or mixed race, or whatever the case may be. Anything you can possibly imagine. And like I said earlier, I'll also be doing another body morphing CAW about specific body types, muscle types, fat types, male and female. We'll try to get them as short as possible, maybe about 35 minutes or so, which is this one seems to be running at on average. But as far as this particular tutorial goes, I hope it was somewhat helpful for you. I know I probably didn't get into as much detail as I was wanting to originally, but I also don't want these videos to drag out too long. So if there's any questions that you might have, feel free to put them in the comments below the video. And if you also happen to be a member of the CAWS.ws forum, you can send me personal messages there with any questions you might have as far as your CAW making goes. But as far as this tutorials go, it's done. For now, we're just going to leave her default, and I think the next video using this brand new piece of work is going to go into attire making and usage of the paint tool for making attires, specifically on females, because excuse me because that's something I think needs to be laid out in more detail as well, because I'm one of the top guys as far as female CAW making goes, and a lot of people want to know exactly how it is that I do what I do. So I'll tell you next time.